Thank you, everyone. Good morning, and a very warm welcome to all of you. From some people from as far as South America, the African continent, Middle East. Thank you for joining us. I know it's quite early hours for you, but thank you for joining us. Uh, so again, when we talk about supply chain, we always talk about, we always think digitalization of the supply chain. We talk about process improvement. But I think as professionals in the supply chain industry, we are now at a very crucial juncture because while we want to have all the improvements, we also have to think of sustainability. So the world is changing, and we know that. And the call for sustainability is no longer a future goal, right? I think it's now, if I were to call it a current mandate, we have to look at that. The challenge is immense, no doubt about it. But even then, while we have challenges, there are also opportunities, and the opportunity, can only be unlocked by a strategic fusion of sustainability, digitization, and digitalization, and of course, with AI. So today we're here to explore digital solutions, which is not just supporting but actively powering sustainable supply chains. We'll dive into how green logistics can be driven by digital tools, and from AI-powered route optimization to eco-friendly and eco-efficient warehousing. We'll also look at the critical topic of carbon footprint tracking and reporting, and discussing how digital platforms are essential, for meeting ESG compliance. And we will also examine how technology is enabling sustainability in the economy, helping us reduce waste and improve ethical sourcing practices. So, to guide us through this discussion, we have an esteemed panel of experts and practitioners. I think it's more important that they are all practitioners. In fact, we have Ms. Amrita Kadilka from DHL. We have Ms. Yung Wei Chen at Cargill, and Mr. Lee Siu Kit at the Singapore Cruise Center. So over the next hour, you'll get practical, actionable insights on how to integrate digitalization with your sustainability goals, learn about the tools available to measure and reduce ESG and Scope 3 emissions, and hear inspiring real-world success stories from those from our speakers. And we have three topics, basically looking at starting off with Ms. Amrita Kadilka. She's the Senior Director at DHL Supply Chain. As a leader in both sustainability and digital innovation, Amrita drives DHL's Go Green initiatives across Asia Pacific region, providing a real-world perspective on how to build greener logistics future. So, Ms. Kadilka, please take over. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Eddie. And I'm going to share my screen. So, can you please confirm if you can see my screen, my slides?
Yep.
Are you able to see my? Okay, great.
Yes, looks good.
Okay, great. So, good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure for me to be able to speak to all of you today. Just by way of introduction, I work for DHL Supply Chain, which is part of the broader DHL Group, which is one of the largest logistics companies in the world. The DHL supply chain business is a contract logistics business. So we provide, warehousing, fulfillment, and domestic distribution and transportation to our customers. And our customers range from some of the largest companies in the world to small and medium size enterprises in sectors as diverse as consumer and retail, life sciences and healthcare, technology, automotive, and so on. Personally, as Eddie mentioned, I lead the sustainability initiatives for supply chain business in Asia Pacific, covering 12 countries. Now, before I start talking about, the digitalization of supply chain sustainability agenda and specific technologies that we have implemented, let me take a step back and talk a bit about what sustainability means for DHL. What are some of our longer-term aspirations and targets? So back in 2017, the DHL Group was one of the first logistics companies in the world to set ourselves a mission 2050 or a net zero emissions target. So our target as a states is to become a net zero emissions company by the year 2050. And more recently, in 2021, we also enhanced our commitment to sustainability by committing to science-based emission reduction targets. So our goal is to restrict our carbon footprint to under 29 million tons of CO2e, regardless of business growth. And in order to deliver all of these targets, we have set ourselves some sub targets as well. So by the year 2030, our aspiration is for all of our buildings, new buildings, to be carbon neutral, for 2/3 of our last mile delivery fleet to be electrified, and for at least 30% of our fuel spend to come from sustainable fuels. So quite a few wide ranging targets, quite ambitious targets as well. So, how do we exactly go about meeting these targets, and where do digital solutions play a part? Let's look at that in a little bit more detail. So, as I mentioned before, I come from the contract logistics business of DHL. So, we provide both warehousing as well as transportation to our customers. Let me start off by talking about warehousing first. So, in terms of decarbonization, in general, we have two broad principles which we use across all parts of our business. We call them burn less and burn clean. Now, burn less, as the name implies, refers to improving the energy efficiency of our operations. So, in case of warehousing, what burn less means is to consume less electricity, less fuel per square meter warehouse space. And burn clean refers to transitioning away from fossil fuel based sources to more renewable sources of energy. So, as you can see here in front of you, in terms of burning less, we use a number of different technologies. We use energy efficient lighting, efficient heating and cooling systems, building design, which I will touch on, energy management, and so on. In terms of burning clean, we have an ambitious target to install solar panels on the roofs of our warehouses to consume more renewable electricity. We also buy renewable electricity certificates in many of our countries in order to pivot to renewable. And in colder climate countries where we have heating requirements, we use biogas. So there are a number of different technologies as well as other levers that we leverage on to both burn less and burn clean. I thought this would be an interesting sort of piece of information as well, which really elaborates on how we are looking at, sustainability as part of our, day-to-day business decisions. So, again, a couple of years ago, we took the burn less and burn clean principles, and we sort of formalized them into very clear and tangible sustainable facility design guidelines. So every time we have a new build or a new lease of a newly constructed facility, we ensure that it has what we call as 20 standard levers. Now, these 20 standard levers, some of them are technologies I've mentioned before, such as efficient lighting, efficient heating and cooling, etc. But there are many more examples that you can see up on the screen in terms of all of those yellow boxes. So we are talking about building design components such as vertical skylights, solar-ready roofs, a number of building features such as rapid rise doors, dock seals, in order to ensure that our buildings are operating in a much more energy efficient manner. We also have what we call as 15 advanced levers. Now, these are design features and technologies that are not applicable across the board for every facility, but increasingly we are seeing these being implemented as well. So we are taking quite a structured approach to identifying the right solutions and sort of implementing them in our facility design right from the start of a new facility. Transport is a very big part of our business as well, and actually the bulk of our carbon footprint comes from transport. So within transport as well, we use the same principles for decarbonization: burn less and burn clean. Burn less for transport, as the name implies, would mean becoming more fuel efficient. And we increase our fuel efficiency by adopting a number of different measures. So we have what we call as minimum standards for vehicle design, in terms of trailer design, in terms of incorporating aerodynamic enhancements, putting in place telematic solutions, so on and so forth, all to reduce our fuel consumption, increase our fuel efficiency. Burn clean for transport means transitioning to electric vehicles, transitioning to biofuels where possible. So biofuels such as HVO, bio-LNG, bio-CNG, and so on. So again, there is no one size fits all. Depending on the use case and depending on the market that we operate in, we have a number of different solutions that we can choose and implement in order to improve our sustainability performance. But the specific topic here is about how do we use digital solutions to improve our sustainability performance. So as you have seen, energy efficiency in both warehousing and distribution in transportation is critical to our sustainability agenda. There are many ways in which we are using digital solutions to improve this energy efficiency. So if we look at transport, we are using digital planning and optimization solutions to plan our transport in a way that we are delivering our goods to the customers in a much more fuel efficient way. We are reducing kilometers traveled, we are reducing what we call as empty running, and we are trying to minimize fuel consumption. And we'll look at an example of that in subsequent slides. In terms of warehouses, we have through building management solutions and smart energy management solutions, we are increasingly using them to improve the visibility of our energy consumption across different parts of our warehousing, whether it be for lighting, air conditioning, equipment charging, and so on. And by increasing the data visibility, we are then able to take the right steps in order to improve that efficiency or reduce our emissions. So the data is the first integral part of it. Increasingly, what we are also doing is we're not just looking at data visibility. We are also pivoting to very innovative solutions that also help us to control the energy consumption of the different energy consumers, as we call them, within a warehousing context by even incorporating automated controls. And I'll illustrate that with an example in subsequent slides. A big part of running a logistics operation is dealing with packaging. And one of the key aspects for us to improve sustainability is to improve the sustainability of our packaging that we use. So a lot of our customers, for instance, require us to transport goods under strict temperature control requirements. Now, we are using digital technology, as you will see later on, to provide reusable packaging solutions to these customers, which in turn helps us to reduce our waste, reduce emissions, at the same time catering to customers' stringent requirements. So I'll touch on a few specific case studies to illustrate some of our recent projects to make it much more real. First, looking at smart energy management and intelligent controls. So this is an example from one of our largest facilities in Asia Pacific. And this facility houses a lot of customers who have very strict temperature control requirements for the storage of their goods. So invariably, that means having a lot of air conditioning systems in the warehouse, which of course means high energy costs, more exposure to energy costs, but it also means a higher carbon footprint, as well as the time and effort needed operationally to maintain these systems, manually adjust temperature controls as needed. So, what we did a couple of years ago is we deployed a solution in this warehouse which leverages on IoT, which is Internet of Things, as well as AI based optimization to first and foremost create and anticipate energy needs and build an energy forecast. So, what it does is this solution uses data on weather conditions, business activity, building occupancy, etc., to build an energy forecast for what the upcoming day or week looks like. And it doesn't stop there. So, what we do is within the solution, there's also, again, an AI driven control system which automatically adjusts the temperature set points of the air conditioning in accordance with this energy forecast. So, what this does is it not only reduces energy costs for us, by reducing peak surcharges, for instance, but it also, reduces our carbon footprint. It helps us cater to our customers' quality requirements. But at the same time, it also helps to reduce the manual effort needed in maintaining and ensuring the temperature control. So, this is a good example of how we are using a sustainability focused solution in order to drive business benefits across all different aspects of running a business. This example is from our transport fleets. So this is from Thailand. Thailand is one of our largest transport operations. We run quite an extensive fleet there, doing hundreds of kilometers a day. And of course, fuel consumption is a big sort of challenge there, right? Increased fuel costs, increased carbon footprint due to this consumption, so on and so forth. So what we did a few years back is we implemented an advanced fleet management as well as telematics solution in our transport fleet across Thailand and other parts of the region as well. And what this allows us to do, as I mentioned before, it of course allows us to plan and optimize our transport in a much more fuel efficient way. But increasingly, what we were also seeing that we were able to capture crucial data on shipments and on transport and on driving practices. And we were using this data to further train our drivers on how to do more fuel efficient driving. So as a result, what we saw was our fuel costs went down, our carbon footprint as a result went down, but our driver engagement scores also increased. So in a way, this was really building, providing these holistic benefits to us because it was helping to build employee motivation as well. I wanted to share this example because, when we talk about technology, it is not just digital or AI or software-based solutions. We are also seeing interesting cases where we've been able to deploy innovative equipment or hardware-based solutions in order to deliver sustainability benefits. So this is an example again from Thailand. It's an example of an implementation of a solution we call Trailer. And Trailer is basically an ultra-thin, flexible solar panel that can be fitted on the roof of a vehicle, and typically a vehicle that uses air conditioning. So the principle is that the solar electricity generated from using Trailer will help to power up certain systems on the vehicle, especially the air conditioning on the vehicle. And thereby, it will result in a reduced consumption of diesel. So again, this is a good example of how we've been able to leverage some innovation and technology to enhance sustainability. I spoke previously about temperature controlled packaging and transport solutions. So this example is from our Australia business, where we do have a lot of life sciences and healthcare and pharmaceutical customers, and these customers have very stringent requirements in terms of transporting their goods under strict temperature control conditions, even while in transit. So, to cater to these customers and to improve the sustainability of this operation, we used advanced packaging. So, what we did here was we developed packaging using, again, ultra thin, lightweight insulating layers of materials. This packaging was lightweight and it was dimensioned in a way that it improved the space utilization from a transport perspective. So we were able to reduce emissions per shipment because more cartons could fit into a given vehicle. These packaging boxes were also fitted with IoT temperature loggers as well as RFID trackers. So we were able to monitor the temperature ranges even when the goods were in transit. And we were able to track and trace these packaging boxes or these packages with greater accuracy as well. So again, this helped us improve waste, cut down emissions, as well as cater to our customers' stringent requirements. Um, I've shared with you some examples of how we have used digital solutions and technologies in a wide-ranging ways to reduce our carbon footprint. However, in my view, we are only scratching the surface of how much potential there is in terms of continuing to use digital solutions, especially with the advancements in AI now. And these are a couple of examples of areas where I think it's my strong belief that we will be able to see much more beneficial impact of technology in improving sustainability. So very quickly, a major source of emissions for third-party logistics companies is Scope 3. And in our context, we define Scope 3 as emissions coming from our transport subcontractors. And currently, what happens is that a lot of the Scope 3 transport data comes from very fragmented sources and very inconsistent formats. So we might get spreadsheets, we might get invoices, we might get telematics based data. And currently, the challenge is to manually sort of combine this data, manually calculate these emissions. Now, going forward, as technology improves and as the power of AI improves, we believe that AI-based solutions will have the ability to really parse such unstructured data and to standardize data formats so that we can combine data from different sources with greater ease. This can help logistics companies or really any company who's using subcontractors to calculate their Scope 3 emission footprints with much greater accuracy. Predictive and prescriptive analytics is another way in which we believe that the advancements in technology can really help us drive the sustainability agenda forward. So, with greater predictive powers, companies will be able to run various types of scenarios as well as simulation exercises much more effectively to understand what is the carbon impact of their business decisions. And that will lead to much more sustainable business decisions in terms of where to locate a facility or how to plan a transport network and so on. So these are some areas where I believe that digital technology will continue to really play a much greater role in improving the sustainability of a company's operation. So this is all I had from my side. I'm happy to get any comments or any questions later on. So back to
Thanks.
you, Eddie.
Yep, thanks, Ms. Katika. Thank you very much. That was very interesting. Tagline for me was, burn less, burn clean. That's a very nice guiding principle in sustainability. So I think that's something that most of us will be able to take away. Like I say, burn less, burn clean is a very good tagline. So next up, we are joined by Ms. Yu Wei Chen. She's the Director of ESG Controller at Cargill. With a deep expertise in ESG governance and reporting, Wei Chen is the ideal person to share insights on how we can manage sustainability, compliance, risk, and reporting with precision. Wei Chen, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Eddie. Good day, everybody. And my name is Wei Chen Yong. I am the ESG controller at Cargill, and Cargill is in the agriculture and food sector, and is one of the world's largest privately held company. And in my role as the ESG controller, what I play essentially is a role as a financial controller that in the context of ESG reporting and disclosure. And it was very good to hear what DHL is doing in terms of embedding sustainability into their business strategy and also how that actually transform the way that they serve their customers. So after all of what Amrita has shared with us from a business strategy and how do they execute sustainability in the business, the next consideration is how are we going to report and measure those performance? And this is something I wanted to cover and share with all of you, and specifically from the context of compliance. This is mandatory compliance that I'm referring to. I think Eddie also mentioned a little bit around this, as in why is the need for sustainability for ESG to be integrated into our ways of working. Of course, the consideration of regulation from a government mandating different disclosure requirements, different practices is definitely one of the key drivers. But the longer term and more justifiable consideration, in my view, is really about business resilience. Again, DHL's example is a wonderful example because it demonstrates it's not just preparing for regulatory compliance, it's also stakeholders are demanding that, and also the cost of doing business as usual is no longer going to be the same. We're going to see higher costs if businesses stay as business as usual. So as we think about reporting disclosure, whether it's mandatory or voluntary, the first consideration is really what is material. What is material in the sector of transportation, logistics, and warehousing, or supply chain in general? What is material here that on my slide is not very different from any other businesses as well? From an environmental perspective, there's always going to be consideration for emission, climate, energy use, waste, pollution, water. Then social essentially the consideration, the material risk for any businesses, for any sector is really around labor practices, workers' safety, and community impact as well. And last but not least, governance. Governance is around, how is an organization, a company organizing the resources, and how do they make sure they operate in a way that is ethically and responsibly towards the society at large as well. So these are the material risks in the consideration of any organization, and these are the consideration that regulator will be looking for reporting and disclosure as well. So switch gear a little bit, talking about a mandatory compliance landscape. There are a lot of acronyms, and then a lot of you may have heard some of this during your work as well. So if you looked at overall from a first, in a regional level, we are living in a relatively fragmented world at the moment. Different region from an ESG compliance perspective is moving, not exactly off the same direction, but so if you looked at EU, there are very strong regulatory framework with mandatory reporting requirements. In fact, a lot of the reporting disclosure requirements are coming out from the EU at the moment, and US at the moment is driven primarily privately by the investors and the market pressure as well. And Asia is emerging, the different reporting requirements, standards, regulation that different countries are looking to introduce to have a better handle and making sure that the business is operating sustainably. So some of the EU-driven regulation, the CSRD, is a sustainability reporting directives. Then we have the LKSG, and the list is not intended to be exhaustive. There are other, EU country-specific regulation as well. Then we have the CSDDD. This by far is the most far-reaching so-called directive and regulation if it does come into effect. This will cover companies' entire supply chain and covering environmental, social, and governance consideration. And it will almost affect all the businesses around the world, because for every businesses that do business with European company, you will be subjected to CSDDD. Then we have the CBAM as well, the cross-border adjustment mechanism. Again, this is more as a tax equalization mechanism. And globally, one of the movement that we're seeing from a regulatory compliance angle is around human rights and environmental due diligence. So, companies are required to first make sure they understand where are the risks in terms of environmental, social, and how are they addressing those risks across their supply chain, and then report on those. In APAC, we have, the Australia Modern Slavery Act. South Korea is looking at something similar. Japan has some voluntary guidelines, and recently we also understand Thailand is looking at that as well. So in the overall scheme of things, where we are right now from a mandatory compliance perspective, globally, relatively fragmented, but we do see some sort of convergence as we move across different regions. The focus on environmental, climate, and social will continue to be the key theme that every company needs to be mindful of. All right, business responses and best practices. I'm glad that I'm actually speaking after Amrita, because she has actually spoken quite a lot on this. However, the lens that I'm coming in from really is, in addition to, doing business to drive commercial and business value, there's a strong requirement or consideration for business to think about risk management more than any other thing. Because Amrita spoke about decarbonization of transportation and monitoring emissions, so not going to go into too much into that. But so the enhanced risk management. Historically, company has always had risk management practices in the organization. However, in addition to the traditional financial risk, credit risk, forex risk, geopolitical risk, companies also require to consider and also integrate the environmental, social consideration into their risk management practices, especially over the longer term, because the climate risk that we talk about, whether it's physical, whether it's chronic climate risk, has a much longer implication in terms of how businesses is going to operate. It affects the resilience of an organization. And as business think about integrating all this sustainability or ESG consideration into the risk management, of course, it also involves investment or upgrading of the infrastructure. And this will be something very interesting to see, because it does require public and private sectors to come together for investment in more sustainable infrastructure. But then again, we have seen some very good examples that Amrita shared earlier, using DHL as an example. It doesn't have to be very heavy investment in infrastructure, but incremental investment in the fleet, in the warehouse infrastructure is actually all this small incremental investment or upgrading of investment actually make a much longer sustainable impact over the longer term. All right, technology and digitalization from the context of compliance is very much as an enabler. The different technologies, tools, and solution does provide, visibility, transparency over data. However, before technology and digitalization can really play a role in terms of optimizing and ensuring compliance, what is required is actually processes as well. So the underlying business processes across the value chain are even more so important to ensure that technology and different tools, whether it's AI, whether it's blockchain, can actually realize its full potential and value. So given I work for Cargill, so I do want to share a very quick example for the agriculture and food sector in terms of how is company within the agri-food sector tackling deforestation legislation. So this is again an EU regulation. This particular regulation is very relevant. It's not just more relevant, it's very relevant for the agriculture and food sector. This particular regulation specifically is aiming to look at deforestation risks across the supply chain of an agri-food company and mandating the use of geospatial data to verify deforestation-free and legal production of different agricultural commodities across soil, palm, coffee, cocoa, beef, and wood as well. So as you can imagine, to meet the compliance need for this particular legislation that's coming into effect very likely end of this year. There's still some uncertainty that's going on at the moment in the EU, but it does require technology, whether it's blockchain, whether it's AI, to get to the accuracy in terms of where is the location of the growing of all these agricultural products and how it moves across the value chain from origination all the way to destination. That is something where technology plays a role in terms of meeting compliance. So most of the agri-food company, including Cargill, what we have been doing is to map a supply chain from farm level to destination. There's satellite monitoring, there's big data that's behind as well. And last but not least is actually a lot of collaboration with your value chain partners, because it's similar to a scope 3 kind of consideration for emission. It's beyond your operational boundary. It's really something you need to work with the supplier, you need to work with the customers to make sure we can demonstrate the end-to-end traceability of our supply chain and our value chain as well, and to demonstrate is deforestation free. So this is this particular regulation in the context of agri-food sector. In conclusion, compliance is a strategic imperative. It is very much from a resilience perspective more than any other thing. Of course, the immediate need for most of the companies is you need to meet the regulatory requirements so that your license to operate in a certain jurisdiction does not get affected. That's an immediate response and reaction, but over the longer term it's resilience for the business, and it's just to integrate and embed into your business strategy, just like what DHL has done. Collaboration is key. Technology, processes, governance has to all come together, and that will then allow a effective transition to a more sustainable and responsible supply chain. With that, I think that is all I have. So back to you, Eddie.
Yeah, thanks, Wei Chen. And I say again, that there's always a takeaway here, and that is, despite the diversity in framework globally, we are glad that more countries and regions are coming together, and they're starting to realize that we have to start now. But even if the framework is imperfect, right, it's better start now than be standing still. So one of the key takeaways in your last slide, when you talk about the government, the businesses coming together, I think we are quite fortunate in Singapore in the sense that the government do provide subsidies for clean energy. So some of you may want to look into that and see, for example, solar panels on your rooftop. There are programs out there that will help lessen the investments on that. So, okay, thanks, Wei Chen. Now, finally, we have Mr. Lee Siew Kit. He's the Vice President of Technology and IT at the Singapore Cruise Center. Siew Kit spearheads the technology transformation for a major terminal over at Harbourfront, and his experience will provide a unique perspective on how smart systems can enhance both operational efficiency and sustainability. Over to you, Siew Kit.
Thanks, Eddie. Hopefully everyone can see my screen, right? So I will give a different perspective because we're part of the maritime sector, and we play only probably 1% of the whole maritime space in Singapore. So we are operating terminals, all right? We are not operating cruise ships or ferries and all that stuff. So we are smack in the middle of the ecosystem, and sustainability is something that our regulator MPA is actually very serious about. So in today's presentation, I will talk about the maritime passenger space and also about Singapore Cruise Center, and also supply chain, what it means to us in this maritime passenger sector. And finally, we'll talk about how we digitize the supply chain. How do we basically digitize our operation, our terminal buildings, and so on and so forth for the maritime PAX sector. Okay. So this is Singapore Maritime PAX industry. We have actually two categories, the cruise ships. The cruise ships are getting bigger and bigger. I hope you have an opportunity to go on one of these cruise ships. So fortunately, in Singapore, we will have the Disney liner coming in December. So this will be a great opportunity for us, families with small kids to ride and enjoy the facility and experience on board a Disney cruise ship. And then, of course, we have the ferries. The ferries in Singapore Cruise Center, we operate regional ferry terminals, and basically we provide service, or the ferry operators provide services between Singapore, Batam Bintan, as well as Azaru. Okay. We have two regulators who report directly to MPA, Maritime Port Authority Singapore, for safety, port safety and security, and then the Singapore Tourism Board is mainly for our cruise economic areas. And Singapore Cruise Center, well, as I say, our vision is actually to be the world's leading cruise and ferry terminal operator. We started in the 1990s as as a division of PSA, right? Since then, we've actually corporatized and is now under Mapletree 100%. And our mission is to provide efficient, innovative, safe, hygienic, green cruise and ferry terminal services. So as I say, we are smack in the middle of the whole maritime PAX ecosystem, and we don't own fleets, we don't own the logistics, all basically have their own owners. But what we do is that we work very closely with MPA and our key stakeholders to see how to meet the zero emissions ambition, both Singapore and MPA by 2050. Okay. We operate three ferry terminals in Singapore, two of which are regional in Tanah Merah and Harbourfront, and one domestic in Pasir Panjang, and lastly one international cruise terminal. We are basically the grandfather of cruise terminal operation, even before Marina Bay Cruise Center come into being. And very soon, at the Harbourfront, we will have our new, we call it the integrated ferry and cruise terminal. And inside this new terminal, we will try to feature as advanced technology as possible, and also see how we can promote sustainability using technology, using processes, and so on and so forth. Right. So watch out for it. The building is coming up very nicely. It should be operational by middle of next year. Now, before I go into the supply chain, this is basically taken off from our sustainability plan on how do we measure and understand Singapore Cruise Center carbon footprint. And as you can see, we are smack in the middle, right? Something that we actually have limited control over the ecosystem. So a lot of our ecosystem partners are actually in scope 3, right? For example, the cruise ships, the ferry craft, the container logistics trucks, and even our immigration equipment, right? Yeah. So this is basically how we see ourselves in terms of scope 1 to 3, and spend a bit of time later on to see how we can measure, because without measuring, we won't know where we are in terms of meeting the zero carbon footprint ambition. Now, supply chain for the maritime packs. As usual, I asked ChatGPT, and this is the definition. In a cruise and ferry operation supply chain, right? We're talking about interconnected activities, resources, and processes. You need to keep cruise and ferry service running, right? From passenger services, logistic fulfillment, filling services, and operation maintenance perspective. So in this particular deck, I focus a lot on passenger service as well as baggage handling from a supply chain perspective for the ferry and cruise operation, and also filling, right? Proud to announce that Singapore Cruise Center was the first, in the world, not in the world, in Asia Pac, to provide LG to facilitate LNG bunkering of a cruise ship in February this year. And later I'll run through this use case on how diligent we have to be to basically mitigate the risks and safety concerns, when we handle the first LNG bunkering of a cruise ship in Asia Pac. Okay. Now, this is a passenger servicing ferry for ferry, right? Just as I mentioned that we operate ferry and cruise terminals. So our passenger servicing for ferries is actually very typical of, very similar to that of airport, right? I would say 80% of the processes, emulate, copy, or rather is the same as that of airport. And because of that, we also introduce airport technology and concepts as part of servicing our passengers as well as processing, handling our baggage. Yeah, later I'll talk more about that. Now, in terms of the cruise, right, it is also very similar. Only thing is that basically we are pushing more for fly cruise because, like MBCCS, they have importing ships. So typically the ships will sail from Singapore to nowhere and back to Singapore. So for us, it's basically the midpoint of a sail, maybe from Europe into Asia and Asia into Africa and so on and so forth. So we do have a lot of transit passengers, and in this particular case, fly cruise and cruise fly are actually fairly important. Uh, but unfortunately for SCC, we only play the terminal role. So for cruise ship replenishment, where the supply chain probably will play a bigger part, the works are planned and are taken by the port agents and third-party logistics players, including both land and sea arrangement. But we are basically in the middle and we coordinate with them and the cruise ship. And for LNG filling, just now I mentioned about filling with services for both ferry and cruise. So we actually diligently had 2 months ahead of the whole exercise. We actually set up task forces involving everybody in that particular exercise. And then we actually set up command centers on the day itself. And NPA actually fly drones, and we have CCTV all over the place to really monitor the extent of the LNG uh, uh, event on that particular day to facilitate better ground situation, and in case there's a leakage, we can activate incident response time if needed. And to tell you the extent of involvement, we even involved the cable car company, right, that are renting cable cars above the ships and the LNG bunkering fleet. Okay, digitizing the supply chain, I think this is the key topic. So we, with opportunity of having renovated our regional ferry terminal at Tanah Merah, completing work at the start of this year, we actually push out a lot of IT technology solutions, basically to provide customers with a seamless end-to-end experience, and to help ecosystem actually go paperless, and to a certain extent trying to meet the sustainability goals of efficiently using energy and so on and so forth, right? And also use technology to reduce reliance on people, optimize resource deployment, because we have scarce resources, scarce assets, so we have to optimize it, improve operational efficiency, and enhance safety, security, and importantly, hygiene. Okay. So this is what we did. So we actually imported technology from the airport, and we introduced fast self-service. So, well, basically in the past, passengers were actually queuing up in front of the manual ferry operator counters. So in this particular case, we have pushed out about 15 self-service kiosks for check-in. We have also pushed out automated, so self-backdrop, linking to the automated baggage handling system in the back end. And of course, together with ICA, if we have actually gone through Changi Airport, or and so on and so forth, you have experienced what we call passport-free clearance at departure and also upon arrival. So we actually collaborated closely with ICA to enable all passengers to be able to uh, experience a passport-free clearance at immigration at our Tanah Merah ports, and very soon IFCT at Harbourfront. Okay, and lastly, we have the self-boarding gate. So basically, is that passengers now can actually, upon opening of the boarding, passengers can actually self-service, scan their boarding pass, and off they go, right? Within just a matter of 10 seconds. So this is fast, and coupled with the fact that we have also revamped our departure control system called C4, so Cruise and Ferry Operation System, and integrating with ICA, in a sense, basically is to drive efficiency, enhance the passenger experience, and to a certain extent enhance safety as well, safety security as well, as they journey through our terminal. And this is supported by cloud, mobile ability, data analytics, as well as IoT. And eventually, we're looking at working probably with MPA to enhance on their version of the digital twin. Or we basically will develop our own digital twin with the objective of optimizing operation, enhancing customer servicing, and so on and so forth. Right. So these are basically some of the tools or technology that we use, but very important. What we learn in our ecosystem is that sharing of data is actually very, very important, right? To really drive a very efficient supply chain, in providing services to the ferries and the ships, as well as services to our passenger. Okay. Now, the other one I want to touch quickly, basically with the Terminal 5 coming up in 2036, there is basically a strong push for more air, land, and sea intermodal connectivity requirements. And basically this is a whole game, on how we can improve efficiency, effectiveness of handling passengers, and also baggage, providing them with a seamless connection between air and sea, and so on and so forth. And basically, we'll be using a lot of technology, and we also need to work very closely with the regulators, with the ground handlers, with the airlines, with the ferry and cruise operators, and so on and so forth, right, to facilitate this seamless, contactless experience when you fly in Singapore to board a ferry to Batam, or on a cruise, basically to nowhere. Now, this is our vision, right? So basically, this is the extent to which we want to use data on the ground. We want to collaborate closely with the ecosystem partners, to have a very consistent, very accurate, and very precise picture illustration on the ground, right? So this is what we call a integrated ops and command center. This is basically styled after the airport operation control system that is already in play for many years at Changi. Right. So basically is that we want to be able to react quickly and collectively to failures and incidents. We want to optimize resources, okay, through dynamic resource deployment or relocation to meet changing situation on the needs. And this applies to supply chain as well. Imagine when a cruise ship berth at IFCT, we will have to coordinate all the logistics of first of all unberthing or unloading passengers coming in, and boarding passengers going up, and at the same time also turning around logistics, from the lights of the cargo, the bags, the fuel, and so forth, right? So hopefully with this digital twin, we should be able to provide very good visibility of what's happening on the ground. Okay. Now, how does digitalization effort to support the green logistics or supply chain for the maritime PAX ecosystem, you may ask? Well, with fast self-service, basically we get rid of hard copy tickets. We also reduce the number of manual counters and manpower. As a result, we can probably, consume less electricity because less manual counters are being run. And very important is that within the same terminal size, how do we optimize size so that we can do more, right? Handle more with the same or less. Mobile apps, the same thing, right? Eliminate hard copy documents, and also reduce the number of trips back to a control center using buggies or whatever it is for information. Cloud, well, we did not invest in our own server room anymore, so we actually outsource. We leverage on the green data center run and managed by the cloud service provider. And this is a very key criteria when we choose our CSP to basically understand how they contribute to the whole greening sustainability ambition of Singapore and the world, right? Okay, and then with IoT and digital twin, as I mentioned, you need to measure before you know what to do or how much you are burning and so on and so forth, right? So data analytics actually help to fine-tune operating parameters like lighting, air conditioning, and so on and so forth. And also how do we allocate resources so that they can optimize to minimize waiting and necessary building of fuel, especially for ferries and coming into berthing, right? So if we can clear passengers quickly for both arrival and departing passengers, they don't have unnecessary wait and burn a few unnecessary while waiting at the berths. Okay. Other green implementation, well, just like Eddie alluded to using solar PV panels. Glad to say that we were one of the first few in Singapore to actually deploy solar panels on a rooftop. And today, 6% of the electricity consumption at TMFT is actually provided by solar energy. Right. We have also introduced big ass fans. So these are the big ass fan that you see in hawker centers, in MRT, and so on, and actually work because it helps to circulate the cold air and actually helps to complement the air conditioning at night. So at night, we actually don't switch on the aircon. We turn on the big ass fan to cool down some of the ICA equipment. Right. And lastly is that we make use of AI, BMS data and all the stuff to actually dynamically turn on and off chillers to cool the terminal building during peak and low periods. For example, during a long weekend where the terminal is very congested, we actually turn on two chillers. But in normal days, we actually turn on one chiller. And basically, this is through statistics, data, and all the stuff we collected over time to see how we fine tune the chilling, the cooling of the facilities and so on. Okay, so very quickly, in terms of our sustainability for IT, we also have certain sustainability plan, I will not go through it, but there are three focus areas. How do we support the industry ecosystem? How do we support enterprise? And lastly, how do we enable the environment? Okay, so very quickly, how the ferry and cruise ships adopting green. So basically is that, with MPA, together with MPA, we are working very closely with them as well as the ferry operators and the cruise liners and all the stuff to see how do we, use green energy and do recycling, whatever it is. Okay. And lastly, this is something that we are very proud of. We were the first LNG bunkering for cruise ship in Singapore in February. And LNG actually is used as a transition fuel that provide solution to the global maritime sector to help to decarbonize in line with the IMO's targets to achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2050. Okay, so with this, I complete my presentation and thank you for your attention.
Thanks, Yukit. I think we probably learn the complexity around fly cruise fly type operation. But certainly with digital twin, it does help simulate and be able to help us gain efficiencies, right? So thank you very much to all our three speakers. I do have some questions that we received. But I probably won't be able to go through every one of those. What I'll do is I'll probably do one that, perhaps most people on a very practical level is asking. And then the rest of the questions we shall post on our CILT website. So after the webinar, we've had the chance to collate all the questions and have the speakers put answers to those. So that will go up onto our CILT website. So I probably have time for one question, and I would like to pose this question to Amrita, who has already spoken about it, but I thought her response was really good. That it's very practical how DHL goes about looking at cold chain inventory management. So the question was, Cold chain inventory management. How do we go green? So, Amrita, your take on that, please.
Yeah, so I think I can look at it from both the facility perspective, where you are storing the goods in temperature control conditions, to transporting those goods. And I've sort of tried to cover some examples in my presentation earlier, but some of the tips, I suppose, from facility perspective would be to use energy efficient technologies to cut down electricity consumption, especially consumption used for air conditioning. Now, some of these solutions could be software based solutions for smart energy management, or IoT based solutions for smart controls and monitoring. Of course, there's also a huge contributor to air conditioning costs is the type of HVAC systems that you have. So organizations need to pay attention to the HVAC system design and optimization. Right sizing the equipment, right sizing the systems can sometimes be the biggest energy saver. Um, Using building designs, so if you're constructing new facilities, using building designs to reduce the inherent need for air conditioning. For us, DHL, we use reflective paint in many facilities to minimize heat loss. We use building features that I've talked about to do the same. So those are good strategies as well. And just a closing point was, we talk a lot about technologies, but ultimately having sustainable and energy efficient operational processes. How do we maintain and manage our equipment? How do we and both the speakers have touched on a number of examples around that. Those processes add a lot of benefit to successfully managing cold chains in a sustainable way. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Amrita. So in the interest of time, I'm sorry, but we have to close this quickly. And like I said, we will post the questions on our website with the answers from the respective speakers. I just wanted to touch on this one last question which was asked, and that is sustainability and supply chain efficiency opposing objectives, right? So this will be my closing statement. When done right, sustainability can drive efficiency more so now than ever, right? With all the technology that's available today, when you think about waste reduction, when you think about lowering energy bills and even building resilience, these are if we can do it right, it will drive us towards a sustainable supply chain. So I would say again, thank you to our speakers, and thanks to all of you for participating. Thank you very much. And speakers, before I close, I hope you can stay back for the next 5 minutes to wrap up. Right. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Have a good day.